Sukuna, the strongest sorcerer to have ever lived. From over 1,000 years ago in the Heian era, known as the Disgraced One, he took on all the Jujutsu sorcerers of the Golden Era, but none could stand up to him. He existed throughout all later ages by becoming a cursed object and splitting his power amongst 20 fingers, where even the fingers themselves were considered indestructible by the strongest modern sorcerer Satoru Gojo. Gashimo, the god of lightning, from over 400 years ago, Yuta Okotsu's boundless energy, and Satoru Gojo himself, the strongest, were all unable to take him down even through consecutive fighting. Madara Uchiha, another reanimated person from the ancient world, rivaled Hashirama Senju, the god of shinobi, who caught and distributed all the Biju like they were little toys. When brought back, he was able to effortlessly defeat the 5 Kage and take on the entire shinobi alliance on his own. Today we're going to be talking about who would win in a fight between these two titans, which are pretty much the final bosses of their own respective shows. As far as Sukuna, we're going to be focusing on Sukuna in Megumi's body, not necessarily his original body from his Heian era, but we will take into consideration the fact that he can utilize his original body much like he did after the fight with Gojo. And the version of Madara we're going to be focusing on today will be the Edo Madara without any of the Ten Tails chakra, and we probably won't necessarily be considering any of the Senjutsu Hashirama Sage Mode chakra that he took. Also in this fight, we're going to be considering universe equalization, where we would equate chakra to cursed energy so they can both use their abilities as it was intended, but we may consider how this fight might alter when we do not necessarily equate the two. Starting off with their attack potency, Madara is objectively stronger. He scales to the Nine Tails, who he was able to overpower and subdue. This Nine Tails, which in the data book, only half of it is stated to be able to turn the world to ash. Keep in mind that the Nine Tails that Madara subdued was the full Nine Tails. His perfect Susanoo can slice through mountains and also rival Biju themselves. Biju bombs, which can destroy mountain ranges and are typically calculated to multi-continental levels of power, on top of the fact that he himself produced multi-continental Chibaku Tensei once absorbing the Ten Tails, but again, we're not necessarily going to consider any Ten Tails feats necessarily. Sukuna's attack potency scaling is a little bit different, as Jujutsu Kaisen doesn't typically give their characters such colossal feats, but even so, he is above all the disaster curses, who themselves are mountain to island level. Remember, we can consider Dagon, who created an island with his domain expansion, and even Jogo, who created a literal mountain with his own domain. We also saw that without even his full power, he was able to destroy massive chunks of Shibuya, in which multiple skyscrapers were taken out in the crossfire. The back of the volume states that he can destroy the world, but I would take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. This statement can be similar to the Nine Tails statement in the data books, where they could be potentially metaphorical, so we'll take that one with a grain of salt. There's also Yuki's black hole feat, which could have consumed the planet. I personally would be more hesitant to scale Sukuna to this because Kenjaku was able to survive Yuki's black hole primarily because of his curse technique. It's a little bit unclear what necessarily would have happened if Sukuna was in his place, but because Sukuna scales so much higher, it is possible he could have also survived this as well. His cleave and dismantle also seem to bypass durability, because after using Maharaga's adaptability, it can attack the soul and cut through existence itself, so it was able to go straight through Gojo's infinity. He also possesses the ability to utilize a domain expansion to slash everything within a 200-meter radius, and he has a flaming arrow, which we haven't seen him use too often, but is another ability to add to his arsenal. As far as durability, Madara has shown several times to have a durability strong enough to withstand attacks that can decimate mountain ranges. When he was alive, he survived a Biju Bomb point blank when Hashirama directed a Biju Bomb from the Nine Tails back at his Susanoo, and as an Edo, he was able to tank Onoki's full power particle style atomic dismantling jutsu without really too much damage, just some damage to his arm, which is supposed to destroy on a molecular level anything it passes through. Keep in mind, as an Edo, he's debatably weaker. I made a video talking about are the Edo Tenseis actually weaker, but just to summarize, it seems that they are buffed by the fact that they have regeneration and nearly infinite chakra, but it seems that there's a lot of evidence to suggest that they themselves are actually a little bit weaker than their alive counterparts. Anyways, he also survives a cataclysmic attack enough to wipe out mountain ranges by the Ten Tails in his incomplete Susanoo. Sukuna, on the other hand, has tanked multiple hits from Maharaga that smacked him through skyscraper buildings. He also survived a 200% output of Hollow Purple, amped by Gojo at the beginning of their fight, the same Hollow Purple that took out several skyscrapers on the way to hit him, utilizing Megumi's body. This attack was also hidden from Sukuna, so he wasn't necessarily anticipating it or bracing for it. This was just his raw durability. In terms of speed, Edo Tensei Madara blocks Biju Bomb Rasengans from KCM2 Naruto. Keep in mind, this is massively faster than the speed of light, because KCM2 Naruto is on par with KCM Minato, who already in base is much faster faster than the Raikage. The Raikage being able to utilize faster than light feats using his lariat, and with B using the double lariat. Also, in terms of giving this a multiplier, I'm going to use a multiplier that I've seen some people consider before. KCM is at least a 9 times multiplier above the 1 cloak, because you're using all of the Ninetales' chakra rather than just part of 1/9 of the Ninetales' chakra. So you can stack this potential 9 times multiplier on top of the Sage mode, which is a 10 times multiplier, and you end up with a 90 times multiplier, which necessarily showcases how much faster Madara is above the speed of light. Keep in mind, again, once he gets his 10 tails, he's able to use other light speed attacks such as his Light Fang, but that's not necessarily going to be a factor in this fight. Moving on to Sukuna, he's shown to be able to keep up with Maki, who's faster than Naoya, who surpassed subsonic speeds at around 273 meters per second. He also easily defeats Kashimo after already being fatigued with his fight with Gojo. Kashimo and Hakari, who are both able to react to lightning speed attacks, and he reacted to Kashimo's electromagnetic waves once he enters his amped form, which is in and of itself the speed of light. In terms of hacks and abilities, Madara obviously has a handful in his arsenal, starting off with the Sharingan, allowing him to predict the movements of his opponents, enhancing his own genjutsu. There's also other abilities. He also has Izanagi and Izanami, which I've went into more detail in a separate video. Fire release, he has his perfect Susanoo. The Rinnegan, which has its own arsenal of abilities, such as being able to absorb ninjutsu, suck out souls out of bodies, utilize the Chibaku Tensei seal, and push and pull techniques, which corresponded to the Diva Path. He is shown to be able to utilize clones as well, and can regenerate with the Edo Tensei, although for the purposes of this fight, we might limit that because they can literally regenerate once their entire body is just ripped in half, which is significantly greater than the reverse curse technique that we see Sukuna and Gojo using. So for the purposes of this fight, we might equalize those two regeneration abilities just to make it more fair. Now, I don't think it really surprises anybody, but Madara seems to have the edge here on almost every single category. Madara should basically speed blitz. There's also the fact of genjutsus, which even if we don't equalize the universes, they can still work on those without chakra, because Sasuke was able to use it on Manda, who, like the other sages, predate the addition of chakra to the creatures of the earth. Now, I've heard people state that Sukuna shouldn't be impacted by genjutsu because he can switch places with Megumi's soul, and Sukuna is keenly aware of his soul, such as when Mahito tried to attack it. And I mean, to this, all I have to really say is, okay, fair enough. Even if he doesn't need to use that, his pure speed, strength, and hack should still give him the win. Keep in mind, if we're also equalizing the universes, Sukuna's main arsenal is Dismantle and Cleave, which should be able to be absorbed with the Rinnegan, and that's pretty much it. I don't really see a universe where Sukuna actually takes this dub. Maybe if Madara is just kind of playing around with him for a bit and he's able to utilize Maharaga's adaptability, but even if he's able to adapt, it's difficult to say if he would be able to actually overpower Madara, which would be necessary to actually win this fight. Also, keep in mind, even within his own verse is somebody who's incredibly intelligent in terms of combat and was born into a time of war. So I think this fight is pretty self-explanatory. Both of these guys are tanks within their own verses, but it's not really fair to bring them over cross-verse. Right now, we're up to chapter 261 in JJK, so there's still a little bit that we could see from Sukuna. I doubt we're going to see any more impressive techniques than we've already seen, since he is significantly drained, but keep in mind, he's been fighting against all of these JJK sorcerers, much like how Madara was fighting against basically all of the shinobis of the time, all the Kage and the Hokage, so he's pretty drained up until this point in time. But anyways, if you guys like more videos, do me a huge favor, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys for 20k subs. If you guys want to support me further, be sure to check out our channel hoodies, join our Discord server if you want to talk with me directly, and I'll catch you in the next one.